Um, so that, that's just some things we're doing in regard to that. We also share bucket filling internally, and even staff can be raving fans of other staff members, so we actually will include that in there as well. So it doesn't have to be just parents talking about staff. We're also doing that, so just to kind of share some things. I meant to bring down a copy of a survey we did with our staff regarding administration and how things are going right now. Part of what one of my professional goals is this year is to look at growth in regard to environment and culture at our school. And my big concern with that was we had 16 to 17 new people infused into our building this year, and to make sure that we were being consistent and everybody was on the same page in regard to what our vision was as a school. So I did do a brief survey. That will be followed up with our a teacher survey that's done by the system in February. But I'll bring that next month. I ran a copy of it off. It's just on the printer right now. And then you can look at that. Scores are good, but if you have any questions about that, it's just an open book. But I did it with the staff. 83 staff members participated in it, so it's pretty good spread of our teachers. I think we probably have around 90 if you count every human being in the school, between 90 and 100, but 83 participated, so it's good. So we get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in regard to that survey. But a lot of the questions are based on environment, safety, professionalism. Do they feel like they're being supported? It's all teacher focused, but you can just also see, really how they are perceiving our school from an internal standpoint. I thought that'd be something you'd be intrigued to see. Book fair went really well. New site for it this year, but it actually worked out really well, and they want to keep it there. I'm not sure Mr. Higgins is going to buy into that, but it was an open space. We had a good turnout. The weather was beautiful that night, so it really worked out well. The year before it was really cold, so it created some issues, but we had a good turnout. We actually had a surge on the last 2 days, and I think they may have even surpassed their goal. We were about 2,000 down Thursday when they reported out from the year before. They kind of always do comparison, but there was a huge rush Friday, and it actually matched or passed the goal that they had, so that was good news. We also had a parent donate $1,000 to give books to children in need, so my guidance counselor, Ms. Robinette, took some of our students in and bought them 1 or 2 books, and each of the children wrote thank yous to the person. I didn't tell the children who it was, but I asked them just to write a thank you for the books, and they did that. So that was a nice little touch that parent just came out of nowhere and wanted to make sure that this particular person was concerned that not everybody would be able to come to the dad's days or didn't have a parent that would be able to help them. He wanted to make sure that everybody felt like they could get a book. So that was just a random act of kindness that was pretty cool. The kickball game also went exceptionally well. Miss Broadway, who's here, did a great job with that. Weather, again, we've been lucky. The last 4 or 5 years has been fantastic. It's about 65 degrees and sunny. We had a fire truck out. There was a bounce house. Shirts were donated for both teams. We had a good parent turnout. There was food vendors and different things. So Ms. Broadway and her group of folks did a really good job in regard to that. And the teachers won, which saved me from having to wear a dress, which I was very pleased with. I am going to be getting slime before Thanksgiving because I lost the book fair contest to Mr. O. We actually switched teams so I could win this year, and I still lost. So that's fine. So that'll be
girls that get off the bus every day asking me when it's going to happen.
So that'll be next week probably, or the week after that, so you can let them know. I may go on the morning news with a wig one of these days just to kind of meet them halfway in regard to the dress thing. I'll have to find one and see what we can come up with. But I will not be wearing a dress, I can tell you that. And that was not my idea. It was Miss Broadway.
It was not my idea.
Because I have gotten a lot of questions about that. I'm surprised you're allowing that. And
it was not my idea. It was friendly.
But it's all in good fun. And my son actually mentioned when he found out, they get very protective of these situations. And my daughter does not like when I get slimed and things like that. And my son was like, well, that doesn't seem fair, Dad. What happens when you win? And I said, well, it tied into the perfect conversation that actually another life lesson from Hal Arber's book, life isn't always fair. And, it's kind of like you do certain things sometimes and you just do. And it's for the betterment of what's going on versus, being fair all the time. And I actually did talk to kids about that, and that was another one of the life lessons that Hal Arber talks about in that book. So it's a good opportunity, but life isn't always fair. And so that's kind of all I have right now. Does anybody have anything for me? Oh, one other last thing, I'm sorry. I mentioned this on the news to the kids. I thought I'd let you all know as well, if you don't. In Cornelius, and it's just because it's a local event, it's in the paper today. If you get the Observer, the Lake Norman section, Lake Norman News, it's usually a pull-out in there. You know, the town of Cornelius raised $190,000 to put up a Veterans Memorial recently, and they're going to do the actual unveiling at 11 o'clock Friday morning. The neat thing about it, tomorrow morning, well, 2 days. Yeah, the neat thing about it is, one, it gives kids the opportunity to see local people that are veterans. So anybody that lives in the town of Cornelius that has served in any of the armed forces that had an honorable discharge or left the military in honorable status can be put on the wall. And right now there's, I think, 1,100 people that are on the wall. And they're going to have a 21-gun salute. I think there's going to be music. But the other really neat thing is I'm sorry?
You did announce it to the
I did. It was on the morning news.
Okay. You're going to do it again tomorrow so that you're reminded to do it on Friday?
Yeah. Yeah, I will. And the neat thing, though, is Mr. Washam, who's the son of the person the school was named after, actually is going to be participating in it again. His group is involved in a lot of the flag ceremonies and things like that, but he's actually in the article today. So I thought that was a neat honor for him, especially after what's happened with his wife recently. Something, I think our kids need to be aware of. We have these holidays and different things, and it's, I don't think we do, and I say me, we don't do a good enough job of kind of making sure kids understand what these events are. So, we've shared information with our teachers to kind of talk about these events, at least in passing, so kids are aware of really what Veterans Day is beyond a day off. I think it's good. I know this year, and I can only speak for my children's classes, but my children were very much aware of who was going up for election this year. And it's an off year, but I thought it was really good when my daughter was able to come home and tell me who was running for mayor in Huntersville, Cornelius, and in Davidson. And I know her class actually spoke to one of the mayors. I don't know if it was Mr. Wood or Mr. Tart, but they actually called one of the mayors and actually spoke to him in class. So I thought that was a really good way to integrate that into what's going on. So, that, again, current events, real life, when you talk about government and things, that's the government that's going on around you. And a lot of our kids voted through kids voting as well. So I think that was a good thing. Anything else for the good of the cause? Yes, ma'am.
Well, not along that line.
Okay.
Are you opening it up now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a question on maybe just getting some clarification.
Okay.
Because I kind of got two different stories regarding the how the science and social studies teachers are the ones that are conducting the writing aspect of stuff now instead of the language arts teacher. Can you explain a little bit about that?
It's a good question. In 4th grade, science and social studies teachers are doing the writing piece. Because if you look at the time allotments, I looked at the clock and it was very difficult in a 90-minute block, which is basically how long the classes are, to get all the reading done and tie writing in at the same time. Now they're going to do writing integrated in, but the more formal writing piece, it made more sense to me to do a 60-minute social studies lesson and then 30 minutes of writing. Or a 60-minute science lesson and 30 minutes of writing in that 90-minute block. So, in the past, all teachers had taught writing, but I decided that was the best point of attack to do it, to make sure we had enough time to do everything we wanted to do. So Ms. Lyons, actually, our literacy facilitator, had been working in both our 4th grade science social studies classrooms to kind of teach the model, to make sure that they're using what's called Lucy Calkins, which is the model that we use in our school system, and that's why it's being done. It made more sense in regard to the timepiece.
But it's going on in 3rd grade also.
Okay, yeah. I guess it should be, because of the same time situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since Lyons is going in that aspect, how do they do they communicate well together? Because like with the language arts, they're doing lots of reading responses and things like that they have to write.
Right.
And I was having a issue because the writing aspect's not being graded properly in those classes. Okay. And so do they communicate together to where, like, if your child needs help, are they marking it off, or how are
I'm not sure about in regard to the grading piece, how they're communicating with each other. I'll check on that. When you do the reading response in and of itself, the reading response does not focus as much on the actually editing, the clarity of your writing and things like that. It's more focused on getting kids to think and reflect on the reading. So that's going to be graded a little bit differently, more from a reading focus and a rubric than it will be to do the formal writing piece and the other piece. But I'll talk to third grade about that to make sure, because they still should be different entities. Like, so when I get a grade on a reading response, that would tie into my reading grade. And then that more formal writing piece should be done in another class, and that would be that, that writing grade should tie in there.
Right, I was just making sure that they were
But there should
communicating
there should be conversation about it.
Right, because I would hate for my child to be writing a reading response and using using a nice big word that you're wanting them to use to be expansive and, but it's not used in the right context for that particular sentence.
Now,
and that's the part that I'm having.
Now, from that perspective, that's not tied into a writing grade, but I think if a teacher is reviewing, that should absolutely be discussed.
Not marking it wrong,
right.
necessarily.
Well, you give feedback.
Correct it, yeah.
Maybe you circle something and say, if you're going to use this word, this is how you want to use this word.
Okay.
And so I think from that perspective, no matter who we are, because we're actually trying to do it more in math and sciences too. One of the things we're pushing this year is that authentic writing. But anytime a teacher looks at a journal, and you're not going to look at every entry, but if you see a journal entry that has a word stuck in because it looks nice, but it's not being used properly, it absolutely should be addressed by that teacher. And again, like you said, even though that's not what I'm really looking at overall, you can have a conversation with a child, say, FYI, the next time you use this, you want to use it this way.
Right.
Or it makes more sense if you use it that way.
So is Lyons going to be is she going to constantly be doing, or is
No, she's
she
modeled it.
Started it
Yeah,
off?
she started it.
Okay.
Yeah, she was going to, in fourth grade, she went in and modeled it, got it rolling. Mr. Catchpole was new to our system, so we really wanted to make sure he consistently understood what was going on with it, because it was all new to him. Ms. Shaper-Peter didn't teach it last year either. Well, she did a little bit, but wanted to make sure everybody was consistent in that regard, so that's why they went into those classes.
So Mr. Catchpole is actually teaching the writing piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the formal piece, right, yes.
Just with regard to that consistency in grading, I do agree that I understand that you're getting kids to think about what they're reading and you want them to get that back on paper, and I agree with that 100%. But I also agree that with the consistency of the marking, the fundamentals aren't necessarily being marked either. Capitalization, periods, spelling, like words that.
And that won't be in a reading response.
Well. Not to grade it, but to correct it, because I think that if they're not getting that consistent message that it's an expected, that's an expectation that they spell something correctly that they learned in first grade and they're in third, then there might be a little bit of confusion about their expectations. I
think no, I think it definitely needs. I think that ties in that communication piece. So like if I'm a reading teacher, and obviously in reading, you should be integrating all that stuff anyway. So you may not be writing in every reading response that, circling every capitalization and every misspelled word. But as a reading teacher, as you teach your instruction, you should be saying, well, I saw in 10 kids, we're still not using proper punctuation, and you blend that in when you do your next lesson, or when you conference with the child, hey, I noticed that, you're spelling phonetically still, You have resources around you that you need to use to help you spell more appropriately. Spell check is going to be the bailout for kids a lot of times in the future, but, there's dictionaries, there's other resources in our room. There's some words that by now you should be able to spell right every single time. And where can you look for that, environmentally in my room? So I think it definitely needs to be done that way. So I completely understand. So I can address that for sure.
Right. I think just a comment like, hey, great content, pay attention to your capitalization. Right. Just something simple.
Right. And I agree with that because of the fact that even though I knew it was going on, it was something that was addressed in the parent-teacher conference.
Right.
Instead of them going through and saying, okay, on the paper saying, great word, but, or...
I think that's good. But I think that could be definitely talked about with teachers. They'd like to say, I've been noticing when I've been looking at my reading responses, we need to spend some more time on this as a group. And I think that's something that everybody can hear, and then we can all, even as a social studies teacher, when I talk to kids about writing, we need complete sentences. I used to tell my kids, and I was a middle school teacher, but it's still to me very applicable to a third, fourth, and fifth grader is I should be able to read your answer and know what the question was. And that to me is when I read your answer, I should know what the question was that was asked. So I taught my kids to blend it in. The reason of this is because versus the two-word answer. So yeah, but that can be hit across also.
Explaining
Right,
complete sentences.
right, exactly. Because if not, our kids are not very good writers, and that's why I think that there's a big struggle this year is because we've gone more to reading responses, and some of our kids struggle with writing. Now there's others that it's like easy, but some of our kids are like, I've never had to do this because we've tried to work around it. Kids struggle with this, so we've tried to find other ways to get the information out of them, and then we've actually created deficiencies by doing that, by accommodating what's going on.
When they started writing their responses early, I want to say like first grade, and they were expected to write complete sentences. I was confused. It's like, well, how do they know what a complete sentence is? Because sentence structure was not taught.
Right. There is not, now when we were in school, there was a sentence tree,
Right.
Which I was not a fan of, but I remember diagramming sentence. That does not exist anymore. Now they do talk about nouns, they talk about verbs, adjectives, in first and second grade, those are areas that they talk about. Once you get into third grade, there's still that piece, but it's not as much. Reading becomes more of reading to learn versus learning to read.
Right.
So it goes away a little bit, but that's part of the program that has kind of gone to the wayside, unfortunately. So kids don't spend time doing that anymore.
Wasn't that part of language arts, your sentence structure?
Yeah, I remember spending a lot of time on it.
I mean, to me, it's like, how can you be a good writer if you don't know the basics of it?
And there's a lot
And
of
it shouldn't stop.
there's a lot of argument about that
And it
because
shouldn't stop once the child
Right.
gets to third, fourth, and fifth grade. I mean, my daughter's in 8th grade, and I'm like, are you kidding
Yes.
me? You are not letting that paper walk out that door.
but there
That is pitiful.
it is honestly something that has fallen off the face of it's kind of like cursive writing. There's multiple proponents in regard to cursive writing, and I'll be honest. The only time I write in cursive is when I do my signature, and that's even questionable whether if you could diagnose this as actually cursive. That's another thing that's really something we do, but it's done minimalistically, and then the reality is you don't really focus on it again. I mean, it's kind of like kids are either using a computer or they're going to use print.
Do they?
My son was using the green squiggly line that when he was doing his blog the other day for reading, for sentence practice.
Do they do like in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, since that seems to be where it's all falling apart? But just a quick, like, I forgot what I used to
Daily
call it.
oral language.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I throw it up there. That would be their morning work, and it'd be too awful. Could be,
And to correct the sentences.
yes.
Yeah.
I've used an overhead, but evidently the
No.
overhead is gone out the past.
No, it still exists.
Well, everything that we learned back in
Yes.
Pluto is no longer a planet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I used to throw up my 2
Yeah.
daily oral language, 1, 2, and the kids would have to in their journals do it, and then I would spend 5 to 10 minutes. I'd let the kids come up and they'd make the corrections and we'd talk about it. And I mean, it was just a quick thing, and it'd be repeated.
And that actually still exists.
and that kind of thing. Third, 4th, and 5th grade, we can surely do that with that smartboard.
What she's talking about, daily oral language, is basically, and it was a program, but it's all online now. I think you can get access to it even at home. But it gives you 2 sentences, and there's grammatical errors in the sentences.
And it's
Well,
also
there's a
like,
workbook that
Yeah.
you can
Oh
buy.
yeah. It's a program.
And then they did that. Yeah. We did that
And there's
last
overheads that go with it and everything. And then as part of your warm up every morning, you write the sentence down, and then you have to, if there's not a period, you have to circle it. You have to circle the capitals, and you're basically editing your work to try to hopefully ingrain that in your working. Now, the problem that we've started to see is that everybody's doing spelling, and kids are spelling things correctly on spelling tests. So I'll use my daughter as an example. She gets 100s on all of her spelling tests. And really ever has any issue. But if you look at her when it's time for her to write, she goes back to all the bad habits that she has, because I don't know if she's doing it for speed or what, but you will see errors that I can go back and after she writes something, I'll say, look at that word, and then she'll say, oh, that's da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, why doesn't it say that right there? And then she gives me a cute smile, and I go fix it. But we're not seeing the transfer. So we're seeing kids spelling words correctly, but they're kind of doing the
memorization.
right. You're using that college mentality where it's memorize, regurgitate, and then forget. So we're not applying that now. So we need to do a better job of making sure. And I think maybe what was said here about doing it from more angles, not just one room where people are kind of all on the same page in regard to making kids aware of things like that. I think that will help the situation a little bit because they're not applying it consistently.
Is this a byproduct of that phonetic spelling? I mean, just get it out of your head. We don't care if it's spelled
I think it's
right.
part of it, yeah. They've tried to combine two. They've gone phonics and whole language, and they've tried to blend the two worlds together because, there's proponents of both, and that's the program that we use. But absolutely, there was some kids that didn't start writing because they couldn't spell, and there was this philosophy out there that was like, well, if we get them to start to write, everything, they'll catch up. We can teach the rest of the stuff. And then because of that, they're writing by sounds. And that's not, unfortunately, how the English language works all the time. It's one of the most complex languages in the world. So that creates this. And so when you see it, they're writing it how it sounds. But you're not, it definitely causes a
You
problem.
can read it, obviously.
So you know what it is, but it's not right.
You see, I'm struggling with that with a kindergartner because don't tell them how to spell the word. Just like,
Well, you're trying to get them to get something on paper.
yeah, and I'm like, it's just killing me.
I'm also witnessing when I'm in the classroom, and I haven't been able to do it as much this year.
Right.
But I'm witnessing when I'm in the classroom that kids kind of don't know how to start things. That they don't know how to. They don't have any kind of deductive logic or anything like that. What I'm seeing is do this in this way instead of any kind of critical thinking.
Right.
And to that regard, is there a dictionary in the classroom? How do you spell this? Go look it up. That's what I got. Go look it up.
Yeah.
How do I know how to look it up? Trial and error.
And then you also, in your media class, you learn how to do some of that stuff where you learn, your alphabetizing and how to use your reference materials and things like that. So it absolutely, and it's something we're trying to get away from. But yeah, you get these cookie cutter things. Even when we were in 7th grade, when I was a teacher, we had a specific model that we taught our kids how to write. I thought it was horrible writing, but it was what the state was looking for. So we taught it that way, and kids weren't good writers. They were writing formula papers.
You just said something about the media center is teaching the alphabet.
Well, they should be. It's part of.
Why would the media center
Well, because
do that
they're-
and not the language?
Oh no, it should be a combination of everyone.
Okay.
No,
I was like,
it should be getting reinforced. It should be getting reinforced everywhere. But like as a media teacher, part of the things that we learned at school was alphabetizing, how to use references. These are the materials that are there. So it's a great opportunity for a media teacher to say, okay, these are your reference materials. Let's pull out a dictionary and take a look at or let's pull out an encyclopedia and look at a reference material. And then that's an opportunity to work on that and reinforce the skills that taught by the
So
teacher.
do they actually do spelling tests here? Because I know.
Well, they do spelling in the classroom.
Because I don't get like a list of the words that come home and like. I always hate to refer back to California.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
I don't
right.
like to do it.
No, go ahead.
But I don't know how else to kind of.
No, that's fine. That's your frame of reference.
But like, if you have 20 words and they're all jumbled on the paper of what your spelling words are, they used to tell you one day a week, take one word and make a sentence for each word. Next day,
And then the pyramid.
do the alphabetization and stuff like that to where it, and then
Use it in a sentence.
do it three times each so you learn how to spell it.
People don't.
No, we do that.
Yeah.
We do that before.
I don't ever see the papers
Oh, you
come
don't
home,
see it.
so
Maybe
maybe that's
Yeah.
A
why
lot
I'm
of
not.
the teachers will put the words on their wiki page.
Now they're not all
Well,
consistent.
see, I don't know who has a wiki page because they don't advertise it except for one teacher.
Oh, it should be. If you go to our website, it has them all. And
Oh,
whoever
I
has
know
one's
they
on
have
there.
the- I know that, but they don't advertise anything as far
Oh,
as.
like who's out there?
Yeah, go to my,
Yeah.
because if they have on their wiki page, which I've seen before,
Yeah.
where it says homework. But yet, I go in, if like my child's forgotten something, I'm like, well, let me go click
Yeah.
on and see if it's there, and it's not.
Yeah, to me,
I don't know how.
I wouldn't even put
often
it.
they update
If
stuff
I was a
like that.
teacher, I'll be honest, I wouldn't put homework on it because that would be a battle you couldn't win. Because to me, it would be very hard to keep up with. So then you get into the situation where I forgot to update it one day, and then the parent's looking at it, it's not accurate.
Well, I say the
Now
best
some
thing
people
that
can do it, I can't.
the best thing that I have found here is that I know he's gone, Mr. T, but
Yeah.
he was a daily email, shortened to the point. This is what we did in class today. This is what their homework is.
Right.
Okay, instead of the once every week and a half email blast, copy paste from, and includes all the announcements in,
Right.
and you have a little bit lengthier. I would rather have the short and sweet, but I know they can't be happening
Yeah,
for everybody.
I mean the wiki to me, the way I tell teachers to do it is put things up there that are standardized and don't have to change a lot. because like, you know, your class rules or, you know, procedures and expectations and things like that. Because when you start to mix homework, not that some people can't pull it off because they're ultra organized and can, but for the most part, if you get caught doing something and you don't get that homework up, or if it changes, or you try to get too organized, put the whole week up and then you don't get to it, it creates confusion, or you end up seeing blank ones. So to me, you're almost better off not having it on there and looking at other options, like, you know,
Isn't that what the children use the agendas for?
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
That's what mine does.
Yeah.
And she knows, if she doesn't write it down, she doesn't do it. She pays, I mean, she's,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, the
But there's
agenda
there's some
really
kids that
helps.
struggle. I mean, Kayla's probably not. I would say she's exception to that. All right, anything else before we go?
Is the school participating in the emergency alert system today?
I don't know anything about it.
Nationwide,
I heard that about
Yeah.
today. It's like
it's
the first time
nationwide
ever.
at 2 p.m. the first time ever.
I haven't heard anything about
Sure if they were incorporating the schools in it as well.
I found that hard to believe.
Now there could be an email on my computer that I'll check in a few minutes, and it'll be on there. So we may be participating, but up to this point, I'm not aware.
It